The men in the valley had a name for what Robert Hale was doing. They saw a fool stacking bags of dirt in the freezing mud.
A house made of sandbags. You've lost your mind, Hale. Dirt won't hold back a mountain winter.
Robert didn't look up. His cracked hands pulled the cord tight on another sack, packing it down with the same force he'd used since dawn.
Dirt is heavy, Frank. Heavy walls hold heat long after a stove goes cold. It's physics, not opinion.
From the cottage window, Elizabeth Hale watched. Her husband never flinched, but the laughter outside grew sharper every day.
He doesn't hear the laughter. Or maybe he just refuses to let it in.
At the lumber yard, the jokes spread like rot. Frank Morrison made sure every customer heard about the sandbag palace.
When the winter freezes this valley solid, those bags will rot and burst. You are building a grave, Robert.
We'll see.
But as Robert hauled the next sack into place, the wall rose higher, a thick barrier of earth and burlap that no one in town believed would stand. Elizabeth needed flour, but what she carried back from Miller's store cut deeper than the cold. A farmer's wife whispered, "Poor thing, married to a fool." The word poor lodged in her chest.
Poor. I am not the one freezing when the real winter comes.
She found Robert by the wall, shoulders bowed, hands raw. He hadn't eaten.
Robert, I heard them today. They think we're mad. Tell me again why this has to work.
When I was a boy, I slept in a root cellar one winter. Thick earthen walls. It held the heat of the earth. I've never forgotten.
He's speaking from a place deeper than logic, but logic won't keep our bed warm. Then we finish before the first snow. I won't watch you break yourself alone.
She grabbed a shovel and broke the frozen crust. Beneath, the earth was still alive. She dug as if warmth itself was buried there. The wall grew a foot higher that afternoon, but Elizabeth couldn't shake the woman's whisper. Poor. It clung to her like frost. The roof went up in silence. Robert didn't speak of the rumors. He worked like a man sealing a promise. Frank took his case to the council. A house of dirt, he said, should not be allowed to stand.
I want an inspection. Before someone buries their family alive in those walls.
When Elizabeth heard, she went straight to the lumber yard. Her steps cut through the cold air.
You are terrified of a house that won't buy your lumber, Frank. Admit it.
It's the council's place to judge, not mine. Let them inspect it.
The council set a date. An inspector would come. Robert welcomed it.
Bring them. The walls will speak for themselves.
The house stood finished, thick and dark beneath the gray sky. But it was a prison until the inspector arrived. Snow dusted the peaks. The first hard freeze was closing in. The inspector arrived on a horse too clean to have traveled far. Frank stood at the edge of the property, arms crossed. Robert showed him the packed bags, the depth of the walls. 30 inches of earth, solid as bedrock. The inspector tapped his clipboard, muttered non-standard, and declared the house unsafe for living. A condemnation notice was nailed to the door. Untested method, unfit for habitation. They moved their mattress and one good blanket to the storage shed. A single room, warped walls, frost in the seams. Elizabeth spread the blanket over the cot, her fingers stiff. She didn't look at Robert.
The cold will test us, Elizabeth, but those walls will hold. I know it, bone deep.
He believes in dirt like it's sacred, but sacred doesn't keep toes from freezing, and I am tired of being poor.
That night, Elizabeth walked to the earthbag house. She pressed her palm to the cold burlap. It felt like stone. The wind shifted. The first blizzard was climbing the valley, and they were sealed outside the one place that might save them. In the shed, the cold crept through the warped boards like a living thing. Frost bloomed on the blankets by midnight.
I can't feel my fingers, Robert. This shed will kill us before spring.
That night, Elizabeth took the spare key and crossed the frozen yard. The wind had teeth. Inside, the air was different, still. The walls gave back the heat of the day like a living skin. She found the old thermometer Robert kept by the window. The mercury climbed and held steady. She rushed back to the shed, breathless, and shook Robert awake.
Robert, I went inside. The walls are warm. It works like you said. The house held the heat better than any framed wall. We have proof now.
Robert sat up. The hope in her voice was dangerous. The hearing was weeks away, but the secret burned in the shed like a stolen flame, and outside, the blizzard began to howl. The howling wind made the shed walls creak. Elizabeth stared at the secret they couldn't use.
Robert, I can't sit here while the truth rots inside that house.
Then we go to Miller. He's the only neutral man left.
They went to the store in the gray dawn, finding Miller alone among the sacks of flour.
Mr. Miller, come to our house tonight. Just feel it, then judge for yourself.
Miller's jaw tightened, but he nodded. A man of commerce, he weighed risks like flour sacks. That evening, Miller knelt inside the earthbag house, his hands on the earthen wall.
It's warm. Not a draft anywhere. This isn't possible. I can't, Robert. If I side with you, this town will starve my store.
Blizzard sealed the valley that night, and the earthbag house kept its secret locked inside. Word of Miller's secret visit slithered through town. Frank Morrison made it sound like a bribe.
Hale bought Miller's silence. I want that house condemned before someone freezes inside his dirt trap.
The council, already uneasy, caved under the weight of Frank's fury. A final hearing was set. Frank demanded the earthbag structure be torn down by order, not weather, not weather. Elizabeth went door to door, begging for allies. Only one face softened.
Please, just feel the walls. See for yourself what the earth can do. I have nothing left, but I'll speak for you. The dirt doesn't frighten me.
No one else would risk their name. Only an aging widow stood with the Hales. The hearing loomed. The town's mind was set, but the dirt walls held their warmth. Outside, the storm buried the valley deeper, as if the sky itself was holding its breath for the verdict. Robert spread his logs before the council clerk. Nightly temperatures inside condemned walls, all above freezing.
You want proof? Here is the warmth that dirt can hold.
Frank brought his own witness, a builder who swore moisture would rot the sacks from within.
My builder says those bags will sweat. By spring, there'll be a rank tomb.
The bags are buried deep in the wall, cut off from air. Rot needs air.
The council listened, but their eyes kept darting to the windows. The sky had turned a dirty gray. A rider burst in, snow caked on his coat. The pass was closing. A 50-year blizzard was bearing down. The hearing was adjourned. No verdict. Only a storm that would test every wall in the valley. Frank's own house creaked under the snow. His family huddled by the stove, but the cold bled through. By nightfall, the world outside the earthbag house was a white fury, and the door was still locked. The shed groaned, frost creeping across the floor. Outside, the wind screamed like a wounded animal. Through the frozen window, they saw a neighbor's shed collapse under the weight of snow.
Robert, look, the Hamiltons are carrying their children through the drifts. They'll freeze.
If we open that door, the council will have us in chains after the thaw.
Chains won't matter. If we're the only ones alive to wear them, we have to.
Robert's hand found the lock. The seal cracked, and the door swung open into a warmth that staggered him. They brought the Hamiltons inside. Then the widow Agnes, shawl frozen stiff from the long walk. The thick walls held the heat like a cellar. The refugees sat on the floor, disbelief on their frozen faces.
There's more room than we thought. Spread the word quietly. Only those who can't make it through the night.
By midnight, the earthbag house glowed with candlelight, a secret beacon buried in the storm. In Frank Morrison's house, the stove glowed cherry red, but the frost on the walls was an inch thick. His wife's cough had turned deep and wet. The children's lips were blue. Frank grabbed his coat and staggered into the whiteout. Pride had frozen hours ago. He found the earthbag house not as a monument to folly, but a warm glow in the blinding storm.
Robert, my wife, the children, they're dying. I was wrong. Please.
Robert said nothing. He pulled Frank inside into air that was still and impossibly warm. Frank stared at the crowded room. Refugees from a dozen homes, safe.
How do these walls work? Tell me. I'll do anything.
They hold the earth's heat, nothing more.
And with those words, the feud died. The man who mocked knelt on the dirt floor and wept. Elizabeth and two others braved the storm to bring Frank's wife and children. Their cough echoed in the still air.
Put them by the wall. It's warmest there.
Robert placed his hand on the earthen surface, showing Frank the dry, solid feel.
The mass holds the heat. Moving air is the real thief. These walls stop the air.
All my life, I built against the cold with lumber, and I was building a sieve. I was wrong. Every board I sold was a lie. This dirt is better than my best work.
A murmur passed through the refugees. The man who had mocked them all now stood with them.
Teach me, Robert. I'll build with you.
Elizabeth saw the change, the hope spreading like warmth from the walls. Outside, the blizzard still screamed, but inside, the first seed of a new shelter took root. Robert pulled a stack of empty burlap sacks from the shed corner. He had saved them for this.
I thought you were hoarding grain. You were preparing for this all along.
We need walls. Now. Not just for us, but for the ones still freezing.
Show me where to dig. I'll fill the first sack myself.
A small team followed Robert into the whiteout. Shovels and sacks clutched to their chests. At the edge of town, Robert marked the frozen ground. Frank broke the crust with a pick.
The dirt's like iron, but it's there.
They filled the first sack with frozen clods, tamped it down, and laid it in the snow. More figures appeared through the blinding snow. Neighbors who had mocked, now silent and shivering. They picked up shovels. The first sack became a row. The row began to climb, and the blizzard could not bury it. Word of the building spread. One by one, the doubters stepped through the snow and picked up a shovel.
You have to pack it like bread dough, Robert says. No air pockets.
That's it. Press until it's solid. The weight does the rest.
Agnes, take these sacks to the women at the line. We need every hand filling.
By late afternoon, the wall had risen to chest height, a thick band of earth defying the storm.
I never thought my hands could build something that saves lives.
All those years I laughed. Now I am begging dirt to hold together.
Old resentments melted into the snow. Enemies carried the same sack, shoulder to shoulder.
Half a shelter by dark. Robert, it might be enough.
As the sun sank, the half-built walls stood like a promise. The storm still howled, but it could not tear apart what they were building. The blizzard clawed at the valley with renewed fury. The half-built shelter couldn't wait for dawn. If they stopped, the drift would bury the work.
No one sleeps tonight. We finished this wall.
He's right. Every hour we waste, someone freezes. I'll take the north end.
Robert, you've been on your feet since before light. You'll collapse.
Then I'll collapse inside a finished shelter. Keep the lanterns lit and the sacks moving.
They worked in shifts, frozen hands passing sacks in the flickering lantern glow. Frost bit their faces, but the wall kept growing.
You are the stubbornest fool I've ever met, Hale.
Elizabeth brought blankets for the shivering workers, but stayed to fill sacks herself, her own exhaustion forgotten. As the wall climbed higher, Robert's steps grew unsteady. His vision blurred, and he gripped a tamping pole to keep upright.
Robert, stop. It's enough. Please, sit down.
Robert's hand found the last sack. He guided it into place, his body swaying, but the wall stood finished.
It's sealed, Robert. You can rest now.
They brought Agnes, and the poorest inside. The warmth hit them like a promise kept. Not a draft, not a shiver.
I can feel my toes again. The dirt, it truly holds the heat.
But this shelter only holds 10. There are dozens still freezing. We need more sacks, grain sacks, old blankets, anything that holds dirt.
My lumber yard has a storeroom full of burlap. It's yours. All of it.
The man who had called it a sandbag palace now opened his own stores to save the valley.
We'll build until no one in this valley freezes again. Robert, are you with us?
From the shelter, Robert's voice came, rough but steady. They would build, and the storm, for the first time, seemed to hesitate. The blizzard broke just before dawn. The wind died, leaving a world of white silence. Across the valley, frame houses had collapsed under the snow, pipes froze solid, and families dug themselves free. But the earth bag walls stood. Robert's home and the emergency shelter were untouched. A council member, coat crusted with ice, crossed the valley to see what had survived. He pressed his bare hand against the earthen wall. The warmth met his palm. His eyes widened.
I condemned these walls. Now I am begging the council to let us build more.
The councilman nodded, muttering that the full council would reassess the method by nightfall.
Then we'll be ready. We'll show them the warmest walls in the valley.
The man turned back toward town, his footsteps slower than when he came. The truth was heavier than ice. The storm had judged, and for the first time, the town began to listen. The town hall filled before the lamps could warm the room. Men and women with frostbit fingers crowded inside for one verdict.
I called his house a tomb. I was wrong. That dirt saved my family and half this town.
The clerk produced the condemnation notice. The ink barely faded. He stamped it revoked in front of the assembly.
I felt the warmth with my own hands. I'll testify to it publicly now.
The council chair leaned forward and asked Robert Hale to lead a valley-wide rebuilding program.
We'll need sacks, shovels, and every able hand, but the earth is free, and we know how to build.
My lumber yard is open. Every board and nail I own goes to this.
The vote was unanimous. The method was approved. The man they had mocked was now the man they asked to lead. Applause broke out, raw and hoarse. Hands that had pointed now clapped. Robert Hale walked out into the cold, but for the first time, the valley felt like it could thaw. The thaw revealed the true damage. Elizabeth stood in the gray mud and began dividing crews.
Agnes, we're building your house first. You've waited long enough.
Robert trained the teams, his scarred hands steady as he showed them the tamp and the stack.
I'll take the second crew. We'll have the north lot cleared by noon.
The burlap that had once drawn mockery now lined every store shelf in the valley.
Fill them tight. Every sack is a promise that no one freezes again.
By the end of the first week, the walls of Agnes's home rose, thick and familiar, from the thawing earth.
It's beautiful. A house made of the very ground I couldn't farm.
She touched the plaster, tears cutting through the dust on her face, and the wall gave back the quiet warmth of the earth. The dirt that once drew laughter now sheltered the ones who had laughed, and the valley began to rebuild. A dozen earthbag homes now lined the road out of town. Thick walls, low roofs, every one filled. Robert pulled an old book from the shelf. Yellowed pages, cracked binding.
It's called earthbag construction. Used in deserts and wars, the knowledge was free.
He showed a diagram of a wall, one he had studied for months before the mockery.
The dirt doesn't belong to builders or councils. It belongs to whoever digs it.
Elizabeth took the message to neighboring farms, teaching while children played in the thawing mud.
You don't need lumber, just hands. We'll show you.
By month's end, 6 families had walls. By spring, the method crossed the ridge. The town square held a demonstration wall and a sign. The Hale method, warmth for all. The man who stacked dirt and shame now saw his secret become every man's right. The new earthbag hall brimmed with laughter. Families crowded tables, and the walls held the warmth of 100 bodies.
I called this man a fool. I was the fool. Robert Hale buried my pride in those sacks and gave my family life.
On behalf of the valley, we thank you. You've given us a new truth. The best insulation is beneath our feet.
Robert stood, the room silent. He gestured at the earthen walls that had once been a joke.
The dirt did the work. I just showed you where to dig.
The hall shook with cheers. Frank grabbed Robert's hand, and the 2 men who had been enemies held tight. Elizabeth found Agnes in the crowd. They embraced without words, tears cutting lines through the dust. The earthbag hall, once a dream of a madman, now cradled the whole town in its steady warmth. Outside, the valley was green where the snow had melted, but inside, the walls kept the memory of winter at bay. Robert looked at Elizabeth, and for the first time in years, there was no frost between them. Spring came fully to the valley. Vines climbed the thick earth walls, and the mud yards turned green. Agnes knelt in her garden, soil dark against her hands, the house behind her warm and solid. Children chased each other between the sacks, their laughter bouncing off walls that had once drawn scorn. Elizabeth stood with a young couple from the next valley, showing them how to fill a sack. She handed them a tamper and let them feel the weight of the packed earth. A new rhythm had settled over the valley, not of survival, but of life. Inside her home, Agnes lit a single candle. The earthen walls gave back the day's warmth. Elizabeth walked the main road, and every face she passed softened with recognition. On a far hill, Frank and Robert shared a ladder, repairing a roof, their feud long buried. The earth had been the cheapest thing they owned, and it had become their deepest strength. As the sun dipped low, Robert Hale walked to the clearing where his first dirt walls had risen. He placed his palm on the burlap, feeling the steady warmth the earth still held. The mountains were quiet, their peaks dusted with the memory of winter. Behind him, the valley was dotted with homes built from the same dirt that had once drawn mockery. He did not need to speak. The proof was in the walls, in the faces that no longer froze. Sometimes the cheapest thing you own is the one that saves you. The wind was gentle now, carrying the scent of new grass and turned soil. He stood until the gold faded to gray, and the first stars blinked in the cold blue. When he turned away, the house remained, solid and silent, a promise to the years ahead, and in the quiet, the valley slept warm.